All right, Rebby Sutherland. Oh, you just moved squares on me there, and I see you now. Rebby, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys? How are you doing, Jamie?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Life is great. Life is great.
Good.
We really appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, this is a follow-up after having Griffin on last week's call, and so maybe I can just even start off with this. I mean, so I asked Griffin to get on the call, then he totally over delivered with,
Oh, good.
okay, here's my notes and here's the preparation for the call. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I mean, I feel like he put 2 hours of thought into a 30-minute call. And then here we're scheduling a call with you and you pull off the same behavior. So you're emailing me the notes and we can dive into some of this. I can share screen here shortly, but is that just something within your org? Is that something that's a strong suit of yours, is your preparation for calls or morning meetings or whatever it may be?
Well, I think with prep, like I think I'm just probably not a naturally good speaker. So with preparing, I've always, and maybe that's just a limiting belief on my end, but I feel like I've always done better when I prepare as much as possible. So that's probably where that comes from. When I was a new owner, yeah, I wrote down all of my notes for all of my meetings the next day, and they were handwritten at that point, but now we type them. So yeah, I do that for sure. I don't know if everyone in my org does it.
Well, Griffin certainly did it, and he seems like a pretty naturally charismatic guy. So you'd think a guy like him could just sort of wing it, but no, he put in a ton of time. He prepared his notes, but I appreciate that. I mean, one thing I've learned from Gary is, when you prepare, people know that you care.
Right.
And I really believe that's a true statement. So thank you for caring enough about us to come to the
Yeah.
table, prepared. And so, the first question, actually, maybe I could give a little glimpse here. I'm going to share screen. I mean, here's your notes. I emailed this to everybody. I told Rebby, listen, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And so, here's her responses. But our first question is, hey, we had a call with Gary not so long ago, where he was, role playing first round interviews. And he says, the last place that he did first round interviews with was with you. I believe in St. Louis is where he was doing those
Yep.
prelims. And so, what did you learn? Obviously, we got your answers here. I'll stop sharing, but what was your takeaway from that experience?
Well, so when Gary came to St. Louis at that time, the reason why he was in St. Louis then was because of I had just had my son. And so the months leading up to knowing I was about to have a baby, I had organized Gary, Vera, Ed, Brandy, like over the course of multiple weeks to visit. And they were in town for like a week at a time. And so when he came in town that time, I wasn't there in the office with him, but I'm really fortunate that when I was a leader in the field, I did a one-on-one with Gary, and then fortunately continued those. And so over the course of my career, he's taught me that a lot, about really connecting with people and the way to ask questions, to really like get to know who they are as a person. I think, those kind of standard questions of like, what are you most proud of and what's your biggest strength, and those sort of things are helpful as a good starting point. But there's a reason why everyone, is interviewing with us, and there's something that every single person we talk to is, there's something that they're proud of. And so I think just really finding that within them and getting to the point where they feel good leaving the interview, not as nervous as they came. Those are some of the things that I learned from interacting with Gary.
Yeah, awesome. And so, Rebby, I've known you for a long time, and I could be wrong. You tell me if I'm wrong with this, but you're doing better now than you've ever done. I don't ever recall a time where it's like, oh, Rebby, and maybe this was, I don't know your numbers now, but there was a month where your office produced $280,000 in wires, which rough math is a $70,000 wire each week for 4 weeks, which is like, 70 grand. I mean, there's a very short list of people that have hit 70 grand, wires, and you're consistently hitting that. So what are you crediting this new and improved Rebby Sutherland? I mean, you were always a performer. I mean, you'd hit your 15,000, your 20,000. I mean, I've always known you to be a professional, but now you're just kind of in a different stratosphere. So what are you crediting it to?
Yeah, so I think yeah, that's a good question. And you're right. I am doing better than I have before. Prior to 2022, I think my highest wire was 42,000. So for some of you guys on this call, you do that every week. So that's kind of like, the norm. But that was my highest wire prior to this year. And so I think there's a couple of things that for right now that are happening in the office that I think are really good. So the first is that like back to preparation, we are really very organized with how we know people go into the day. So, we know that like if I can make sure that people are standing in front of people, as qualified people, as often as humanly possible, and they're not wandering around in their territory, wondering where to go next, or distracted in a store if you're on retail and kind of looking at their phone doing something else, then that just means they have more time. I wrote in that email that Danny Giannoni, who's an owner on the AT&T program, just came in town recently, and he said he originally trained in Justin's office, and Justin Hagman's guys are really good at sales. They trained me on AT&T when I moved back to AT&T also. And he said, your guys just outwork everyone. So I've always been really organized with my territory management, but I think one change I have made recently is just really like holding people accountable to like going back to territory that they think has worked. But if I look at it, I know it's not worked. I know that they can get more out of it. The longer someone's in a territory, the better they're going to do. And so really like micromanaging their performance out of territory or in a store, if you're on retail, and then really like, so one of the specific things, if you're on residential, Danny said was all of the sales he had seen the day that he went in the field with the leader, was that they were closed on the 11th knock. So that means we went to that house 11 times and nobody answered and we didn't talk to anybody. But then, on that day, it was like 11th, 12th or whatever over that, then they answered. And so I don't know, just little things like territory management. I think I really rely on the LOA numbers and don't really like justify why, people aren't getting the results. I just really like am coaching them on what the LOA numbers tell them. And I think I used to listen to the excuses a little bit more than I do now. So that's one big thing. When I say the problem, I wrote on there like problems or negatives, turn them into our biggest asset. And I think we have done that recently a lot. Any sort of challenge we look at, we've really turned it into like a massive benefit. So on like a small scale, if a customer says it to us at the door, someone was just here, you can like really turn that into a positive. Yeah, we were just here and we decided to come back because there's so many people in the area that are signing up. So we wanted to be sure that we gave you a chance to reserve an installation date or something like that. Something where, hey, this is the biggest objection. This is the biggest challenge that we have right now. How can we change it to be a big positive? And I think I've always been like that, but more so just on a bigger level now. When I originally moved to New York, one other thing I'll say about that is we had to give this document, this paper on direct energy. And I don't know where Jeff is, if he's still on, but I can't remember I feel like at that time Jeff visited my office, but we had to give this document to customers, every single person we pitched, and it said New York Public Service Commission at the top. And that was like a necessary part of the pitch. In New York City on an energy program, you had to like give them that piece of paper. And it was so intimidating to people. Like, this person at the front desk would be so afraid of, like, well, what are you serving me or something? And people would come to New York to, like, go in the field with the guys, and people would say, like, oh, I don't think you can do energy sales here because of that paper. And we looked at it for like a little while and said, like, how can we turn this into our benefit? Like, how can this be a positive for us? And to the point where we did figure out how to do that, and people came back to the office, a year later and started saying, well, the reason why you guys do so good at sales is because, or the reason why your office is doing so well is because you give people that paper at the beginning. So it makes them feel like, it's more official, or they like made it seem like that was the reason why we were doing well. Whereas initially it was like, oh, we can't do sales because of that. So I don't know. I think just a really big focus on, like, whatever the biggest challenge is, instead of trying to avoid it, like, turn it into a positive, turn it into something that can really, like, benefit the office. Whether it's like the reason why people don't start is because of commission. Well, how can we make that a positive? Or if the reason that, people leave the business after a week or two is because of whatever, find out what it is and then turn it into a positive, and give expectations on the front end to avoid the issue. So I don't know if I covered all those points that I said, but I think we work hard. We're really meticulous on the territory and the planning that goes into the day, so people are like getting the most out of every day. And then we look at problems like, okay, how can we turn this into a benefit?
And Rebby, what's your disc profile?
I am a CD.
Oh, you're CD. Okay. So am I. So you're my sister in the world of CDs, I guess.
But actually, you know what? I think yeah. So it's C, but my I and my C are equal.
Okay.
But the individual one, like the whatever it's called, is the C is higher. I don't know. I'm like a combination of whatever.
Well, you're certainly super organized. And again, I think for owners to hear that, oh yeah, territory management. I mean, again, here's a girl getting $70,000 wires and you're talking about territory. I think that comes a little shocking to people, but I mean, you're certainly utilizing your strength. I mean, you're getting into the details of your campaign. You're not letting your guys give excuses. So I think that's interesting. I mean, so everybody can certainly use their strengths in running their office.
Yeah, and I would say it's not that I don't let them give excuses, because I like when they bring up the excuses. I don't want to tell them, like, not to tell me, like, what are the challenges, because that's important. If someone feels like they can't voice what held them back for the day or the challenges they had, then sometimes they feel like they lose hope, right? So, but at the same time, I think we look at it like, okay, that's great that happened. That's such great information. Now what can we do about it? And then get them the help that they need to do better.
Yeah. So in the world of your uber organized business, I mean, so you caught my attention with you survey your people, right? You sent surveys to your leaders. And so I read this individual's response, which is, I mean, what a thing to say. Like, I never want to leave. I love the mentality and the trading. I mean, so tell me about this survey. Like, what are you doing here with your leaders?
Yeah, I think I wonder what they thought by when it says trading. I think maybe it was supposed to say training, but who knows? Because I'm like, what trading do we do around here? We like, but are people doing some like insider trading I don't know about? But they the survey, I just think Gary ran a call for Ed's office or Ed's org not too long ago, and this isn't where it came from. We had sent this out before, but I feel like this explains it. He ran a call like, hey, there are people who have the ability to do better and maybe they're not right now. And a lot of times it's just because they need either extra confidence or, extra training or, just extra guidance and to really believe in themselves. And I think that people show up to work to do a good job, right? Like, we all did that when we were in the field. And people want to get great results. So if they're not, and another thing, another example of that is like, let's say you're like, doing online dating, right? You go out on a date with somebody who like has broken up with a bunch of people. Like, what's the reason why he or she says they've broken up with all these people? It's always their fault, right? It's not that person's fault. It's always their fault. Or someone's like job hopped a lot. Why did they leave those jobs? It's always the other, company's fault, not their fault. But in reality, like it may be something with them. Well, how can like we as a company prevent someone from feeling like it's our fault? Because there's no benefit of us blaming them, right? There's no benefit of us saying, oh, this person like just didn't work hard. Oh, this person just didn't get it. I've heard people say, or oh, this person just didn't want to work that hard. Like, all of those sort of like reasons for losing people or someone not developing in our company just doesn't help us, even if it's true, right? And I think sometimes people will say information, in an anonymous setting, more openly than they would to me directly. So I do try to like get that information as often as possible. And it seems like such a simple question. Hey, what can we do to like help you? What can we do to make your job better? What can we do to help you progress that we're not currently doing? What do you like about your job? Do you have any additional comments or that we don't know about? Seems very simple, but sometimes we forget to ask those questions because of like the normal day-to-day life,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where it comes from, is just trying to get as much information as possible so
Yeah.
that I can, really help the guys.
Yeah, I mean, you're not afraid to, like you said, turn your, what's your biggest negative, and turn that into a weaponry. And I think you gave a good example with that letter showing people, oh, that's why you guys are doing well now. Like, well, that wasn't always the case. So you're certainly not afraid to get the feedback. You want the feedback. I mean, how often are you sending out Survey Monkeys?
We do it pretty regularly. Like, I think sometimes we get more responses than others because it's anonymous. So I can't be like, oh, you filled this out and you didn't, right? So it's not like I can really hold them accountable to filling it out. But we like to do it every, I would say at the most every 6 months, because there's normally changes in the office over the course of that time. If we're on top of it, every 3 months, but probably every 6 months we'll give you as much information as you need. And I think the most important thing from looking at that, like the Survey Monkey. So what do you like about your job? What do you not like about your job? Like I've also asked questions like, who's provided you the most leadership? Who has helped you understand the business the most? And it's interesting to see who people will put down, because sometimes I've had it where like the leadership that I would expect to come up isn't coming up, and that there's something there to look at, or it kind of like reaffirms, okay, this is a good, we're in a good spot with the leadership we're providing. So that comment was really nice. It was really, like when I read it, I was like, wow, that's why I work so hard. But there also were some on that very same survey. I don't know if it was the same person, but there were some stuff we need to work on, some very good, true stuff, I think, that was also put there. So, we'll just take that as action items and do something with it.
Stephen just sent me a direct message to follow up. Are there any questions that you've asked that didn't generate much of a response or didn't work? Are there any questions to stay away from?
No, I think anything probably that like will out who the person is filling it out, right? So if it's something where in order for them to provide the feedback, they have to kind of give up who they are, I find doesn't get as good of responses or as open as responses. Normally people fill things out openly and honestly if they know it's not going to get back to them. So no, I don't think there are any questions. Just as open-ended as possible has been helpful.
Yeah. And is it fair to say your org is doing better than it's ever done? I mean, we're on a call and you're pacing for a senior national promotion, which is awesome. So is the success of your org a result of like, well, Rebby's just doing such a phenomenal job setting the pace that your owners are leveling up too? Or is there something going on within the org that you want to touch on?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you sent that question. I think the people seeing success on the same campaign certainly makes the difference, right? So if they see, hey, you're on the same campaign and you can communicate in the same exact language on the same program. Like we all know, like the difference between retail, I've never worked on a retail program. So there's certain language and I actually don't have any owners in my org on retail. So there is certain language that does not translate to from residential or business to business to retail. Even like, I have a rep on the Amazon counter program. And so, or the Connect Me Better program. And just even like the closing statement is going to be different for AT&T than it is for Amazon, because we're not like, hey, we do our installs Monday through Saturday. Which day of the week works best for you for installation? Doesn't work for Connect Me Better because there's no install, right? So you have to like, I think like success on the same campaign helps because you can communicate that language and you can confidently like answer details about like what that person or office can be doing. So certainly in one-on-ones when little things come up, I think that helps. Not all my offices are on AT&T are on the same program. But I certainly do try to like learn the information on whatever programs the offices are on. And any sort of excitement helps. So I imagine, people always used to tell me that when I was not performing at such a high level, well, when your office does well, then your org will do better. So that happened, but I don't know if it's the same, if it's directly correlated. I'm sure it is, but that's all I would say about
That'd be my guess too.
it.
Dr. Roger Bannister, he breaks the 4-minute mile and then 50
Yeah,
people.
it shows what's possible.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a call with one of my owners that's like third or fourth gen owner earlier this week, and he was asking specifically about Saturdays, right? So on residential, we work Monday through Friday, and then Saturday we work Saturday too. And we talked a lot about like the bonuses and positioning them so people are working, if they are working on Saturday, this is how to hit them. If not, how to position them so they, to motivate the guys to hit them before Saturday, and earning off Saturday as a carrot. I think because of those similarities, like he's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And he texted me the next day and said he changed it, and people were really excited about it. So I think just understanding the different things on the campaigns and stuff help.
Mm-hmm. And so my last question, I mean, we all want a Griffin Trotter in our office. So if he has any siblings, in Los Angeles or something.
You have 2 older brothers.
He's got 2 older brothers. They'll send them our way. So what did you do well? Like, how did you land this guy? Like, again, his numbers are phenomenal. I mean, again, we were all in Dallas when the numbers were kind of shouted out, like, oh yeah, this guy's made 40 grand in the last 10 weeks. Like, is that even possible? Like, and he's on AT&T selling, residential services. Like, this is just unbelievable.
Yeah,
When he's on the call with us, we're all just floored by him. I mean, just a great guy. And he said so many nice things about you too. So from an ownership perspective, we're all like, gee, we want our guys talking about us that way. Like, he's just got so much respect for you. So what do you think that you did well to recruit a guy like him?
Yeah, so I do think this is an important point because, and I may have already shared this with you maybe a little while ago when we were at Keys, but or I'm not sure, but I said to someone. So, after I had my son, there were 2 people in my office, not just like 2 leaders and some other people, there were 2 humans. So when Gary came that time that he refers to about doing prelims, like I needed him to do some good prelims because I needed him to help me build that. It's like I had 2 people, and one of them, he said it when he came to my house after the day in the office, his feedback on one of the guys was, he's going to need a lot of direction, which is like such a Gary thing to say for like someone who's like, right? So it's like, but it's so nice. It's the nicest way to say like, no, gosh, I don't know about this person. But anyway, the point is that, it was probably a low point, and then COVID hit. But the whole, like after that, like, even 2000, Griffin started in March of 2022, right? So that's this year. So, we've been growing since then, but I literally almost anytime I haven't had an office where I'm like really proud and happy with the people I'm working with, is I literally say the words in my head, it only takes one. It only takes one. Like we've all been the difference makers in our promoting managers' offices. And we've seen the difference one human can make to an entire office. I've seen it with almost every person I've ever promoted. I've seen it, I saw it with myself when I started in Ed's office, looking back on it. And it's not like that one person, you rely only on that person and you only build around that person, but the effects that, one person can have on the culture, really it can make a really big difference. And so it only takes one. So, the number of interviews I do very regularly is a lot. And I actually was looking back at my notes because I take notes on every interview that I do. And I ask questions that I know I'm going to want to refer back to. So who do you look up to? What are you most motivated by? So that when they're like not in a great place, maybe I can refer back to that and say, I remember when we talked about, really being motivated to make your mom proud, like, how are you feeling right now about doing that? Right. And anyway, I looked at some of my notes and I'm like, oh, I love this person. I thought they were going to be so awesome. And, they didn't start, or they did start and they weren't, maybe as great as I thought. So I've interviewed a lot of people that in order to find a Griffin, I think that's the first thing. No one's immune to the law of averages. We all have to, you have to meet with a lot of people to find someone like Griffin. And I certainly do that. I do meet with a lot of people that are great and not to work with him. And then another thing I think is I'm really zoned into the interview. Like I really want to get to know them. I want to figure out why they left their previous position, why, and understand that from the perspective of why would this position be a good fit for them. Normally there's an event that causes someone to leave a position. Like if they say, oh, there's no growth right now, like I wanted to leave because there wasn't a lot of growth. There's normally like not like just a aha moment that causes that. There's normally like something that happened that caused that to make that decision. And I want to find out what that was. And yeah, just really want to ask questions to get to the root of who they are. Found out Griffin's brother wrote a book called Setting the Bar. Before he started, I ordered that book and read through it. And just really like connecting with the people. I didn't at that time, I didn't know Griffin was going to be Griffin, So I've certainly done that with other people who have not gained the momentum he has.
All right. I think that's great. You can go back to all those resumes and look at all those notes. I mean, what a smart play.
Yeah, I do it in the Notes app on my computer, like on the Mac. I just put it in the Notes app and I press return, put the person's name and the date, and then just put that information above it. So there's a lot of people on there that, I don't remember at this point, but I scroll through and find the people that are still here.
Sure makes it look like you have an unbelievable memory, doesn't it?
It does look like I have a good memory.
Like, wow, I can't believe you remembered my interview from 2 years ago, Rebby. That's unbelievable. I think a lot of people too overestimate Gary's memory. Like this guy's got the memory of an elephant, but he's a great note taker.
Right.
Great note taker equals great memory.
Right.
Well, Rebby, thank you so much again for your preparation for Griffin. I mean, we're all, anything we can do for Griffin, we're there. I'll be leading a call with him.
Yeah, tomorrow. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I haven't prepared the notes the way he has, so hopefully I don't fumble that.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing that.
I'll try my best, but thanks for setting the pace, and let's get a promotion to senior national here, Rebby.
Yeah, coming soon. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Talk to you
Okay.
guys later.
See you guys.
Bye.